Good afternoon, and as always, a very warm welcome to this midweek ministry here at Gilcomston Church. I'm delighted that you're able to join us this afternoon, and I hope that the next half hour or so will indeed be refreshing, invigorating, stimulating, and a help to you. This is the last week of the school term, the whole school year. It's been a strange year again, but the end of the school year coming up at the end of this week, and so there'll be any number of folk who are demob happy, I guess, at the end of the week. And it really does just remind us we move definitely into what goes by summer here in Scotland. And through the course of the next weeks, therefore, there's many a family who are kind of figuring out what they're going to do. And quite often people make out a list of things that they plan to do, hope to do, called a summer bucket list. You don't have to be Ur Wally to make such a list. All sorts of people make all sorts of different types of list like that. And the phrase bucket list is one that was made the more famous back in 2007 when there was a film by the name of The Bucket List, starring Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson, a couple of pretty notable actors there. And both of them in the film, they have basically 6 months to live. They're both terminally ill. They come from very different backgrounds and have very different circumstances, but they find themselves in the hospital and they have 6 months to live. And they make a list of the things that they plan to do in the 6 months remaining to them, their bucket list. And bucket list is what I want really just to think about a little bit with you in general today. The whole notion of bucket lists, things that we want to do before we kick the bucket, before we die. And quite often people do have a bucket list, an actual list of things. And it's interesting to see the sort of things that people have on their bucket list, a whole range of different things. And there are some that feature very, very prominently, some that crop up again and again. And I thought just it'd be interesting for you just to have a look at some of the things that many people choose to put on their bucket list. One of the most popular, strangely, is people want to run a marathon before they die. It may be the reason why they do die, I suppose, in the end of the day, but they want to run a marathon. They want to set themselves that big target, that big challenge, running a marathon, and it is quite demanding. A lot of other people, the next one we'll put up is they want to swim with dolphins. For some strange reason best known to themselves. It's never really captivated my mind, but some people, quite a lot of people actually, that's one of the things on their bucket list, just to find a time, place where they can go and swim with dolphins. And if running a marathon is demanding, then some of the things that people put down are really quite dangerous as well. And I don't know whether swimming with dolphins is, but swimming with sharks certainly would be. And I suppose there are a number of things that do have that element of danger in them. Just that exposure to the possibility of harm, the possibility of danger. Bungee jumping, I suppose, comes into that category on the bucket list of things that people want to do. Things sometimes are quite dangerous. Next one is, I suppose, quite difficult. But a lot of people, before they die, they want to be able to write a book. They think, the truism that everyone has a book in them, and therefore there's the instinct that means they want to write a book. That features quite largely on people's list of things to do. Another thing that seems increasingly to figure quite prominently on the bucket list of some people is take a trip into space. And that's, if the other ones are demanding, dangerous, and difficult, this one is, I have to say, quite expensive. It will cost you round about $175,000, I understand, if not more, for 90 minutes up in space, which rather puts in the shade the cost of a ticket for a Scottish rugby or football international, where you get 90 minutes of adventure, I suppose. A lot of people put down people that they want to see, a concert that they want to go to, quite a lot, for instance, want to attend a Taylor Swift concert, just be there live and be part of the crowd that's gathered there to soak in the atmosphere, to enjoy the singing and so on. Some people put down on their bucket list they are desperate to get Andy Murray's autograph, and equally some people are keen to meet the Queen. She's up in her 90s, so you have to hurry on that one. A lot of people, it's not so much things they want to do, it's places they want to go, and very prominent is the desire to climb to the top of the highest mountain in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro, and a lot of people trek up there. It's one of the great ambitions that many people have. A lot of people want to fly over the Grand Canyon. If Mount Kilimanjaro is that instinct that means we want to get up high, flying over the Grand Canyon, I suppose, has something to do with the instinct we have for just being awed by what is big, and the Grand Canyon is really, really big. Everyone who's been there will tell you that until you've actually been there and experienced it for yourself, you have no idea, really. Photographs do not do it justice. Videos don't do it justice. You have actually to be there to be overwhelmed by the sheer size of it. Mount Kilimanjaro is to do with high, the Grand Canyon to do with big. Then one of the other ones that features very prominently has to do with what is old. People like to go and visit the pyramids in Egypt and get some sense of history, and see something of the extraordinary way in which these pyramids were constructed long ago. Another one that features very prominently on people's lists is the desire to go and see and to walk on the Great Wall of China, which I understand is the only man-made construction that is visible from space. And it's clearly a pretty impressive thing. And actually to be there, to walk on it, is on the list of a whole load of people. And that's pretty long, obviously, pretty large and long like that. And some people choose to simply enjoy the best beach in the world. And you don't really have to go that far. In fact, you don't have to go outside of Scotland to go and visit the best beach in the world. There are obviously a few notable contenders for that. That's the beach on the island of Harris, Lunchtime, and it is just a stunningly large beach where if you see another person, as you can see in that photo, that's a crowded day. You have the beach largely to yourself. It's not mobbed out with people. It is just a delightful place to be. It helps, obviously, when the sun shines rather than the rain pours, but it's there for you. And just to enjoy the best beach in the world on the list of some people's bucket lists. Well, there you have a range of things on the bucket list. You may wonder why I'm speaking about that, but it's informative, I think, just to recognize that basically these bucket lists combine either things that people want to do, people that they want to meet, or places that they want to go. And behind that is a particular perspective that suggests that we have this nagging feeling that somehow the other man's grass is always greener, as Petula Clark used to sing back in the previous century, and the sun somehow does shine brighter on the other side. In other words, there are surely better places, better people, and better things for us to be doing in life. And that's indicative, really, of our condition as human beings, where we are basically simply a people who are thirsting. We're not always quite sure what we are thirsting for. We're just aware of a certain thirst in our hearts and in our minds, and we are thirsting ultimately for somewhere, something, and for someone. That's what we are thirsting for. And the Bible recognizes that. Recognizes that we are thirsting for a land, we're thirsting for a love, we're thirsting for a life, And that's the language that is used, the language of thirst. And there's a lovely passage in Scripture that we sometimes sing the paraphrase of that reflects precisely that, where God says, all of you who are thirsting, come to the waters and drink. I've got what you're looking for. And so I thought at this point we might just share in the singing of that paraphrase. The paraphrase, it's quite an old one obviously, but we love to sing it. Ho, ye that thirst. Well, I thought we would sing that because in many ways it reflects the longing that lies behind these bucket lists, things that we want to know, to experience, to have. And the scriptures speak of it as that thirst. Isaiah 55, come all you who are thirsty, come to the waters, and you who have no money, come buy and eat, come buy wine and milk without money, without cost. Why spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? Now, we're going to have a read in a moment or two of the scripture passage that we've been looking at over the course of the past weeks in Luke chapter 15, a chapter where Jesus tells three stories, really to explain to those who deem themselves to be familiar with the Bible, altogether good, upright, respectable people, why it was that he spent time with, delighted in the company of, shared a meal with those who were sinners, tax collectors, those who were messed up in their lives. Why on earth do you do that? And he tells these three stories, the first two of which we looked at previously. All of them have to do with people who are lost. And the longest of these stories is what we're going to start in on today. It's the story, very familiar story that we know as the story of the prodigal son, but actually it's the story of two lost sons. The focus obviously largely on the younger son, the prodigal son, but the stay-at-home son was just as lost as well. And I hope you'll see that this whole notion of the bucket list and what lies behind it really plays into the reading of this story. We're going to read just the first little part of that story, Luke chapter 15 and at verse 11. We're just going to read down to verse 16 and pause at that point today. Jesus continued. He'd already told the story of the lost sheep that the shepherd went to find, the lost coin that the woman went and spent energy finding, the joy, the delight that there was when she found the lost coin. Jesus continued. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. And that, of course, for the Jew would be anathema. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. Well, the narrative there, the story that Jesus tells, is about a young man who is lost, who gets lost in life. And it's a story that really underlines the longing that we have, the longing that lies behind these bucket lists that we create. Remember what I said earlier on about those bucket lists, that they either have to do with things to do, people to meet, or places to go. And in many ways, it's exactly that we see in this younger son, that longing for something that he figures being at home with his father is not able to provide. And so he goes off and he finds that the way in which he directs his energies and his money and his attention, that actually they don't satisfy. Why spend money on that which doesn't satisfy? But I want you to look with me at what he actually does. He gets the money, obviously. He's a kind of gimme guy, saying to his father, I want it now. I want to be able to enjoy my life now. I don't want to have to wait until you die before I can inherit what is mine and then be able to go and blow it and do the things that I want to do. I'm young. I've got energy. I want to go and do these things now. I am eager to find something, that longing that we have, that thirst. We often don't quite know what it is a thirst for. And here, this young son does what is on the list of many people, the bucket lists of any number of people. First thing that we read about him is, you'll notice that he goes to a distant country. That bucket list phenomenon whereby there are places that we think, if only I could go there, I'll die happy if I manage to go there. If I manage to view Africa from the top of its highest mountain, if I manage to see the immensity of the Grand Canyon, I'll kind of feel that I have lived when I go there. The longing for somewhere that somehow will be like paradise to us. Now, that'll vary from person to person, obviously, but a place that we long to go to. It's interesting in the Bible that from the very beginning, it is a place that the Lord puts the man and the woman. In Genesis chapter 3, there is that environment that is ultimately altogether satisfying, but somehow they think that there is something surely better for them. And when God delivers the people, they are slaves in the land of Egypt. The whole narrative of the Old Testament, the whole story of God's dealings with his people, is one where what he has promised is a land that is good and spacious, a land that flows with milk and honey. And here's this boy, he is looking for that land, that realm where he will indeed be satisfied. that will be spacious and satisfying for him. And there is that longing in all of us for that better land. The letter to the Hebrews picks up on this in chapter 11, that long catalogue of believers, all of whom are marked by this same longing, this same desire, but by this same conviction that God has indeed promised to us a better land. And so you find the record of those about whom it's said they are seeking a country. They are seeking that distant land. They are seeking that realm where God dwells. And they're heading there. They are pilgrims here on earth. They know that this is not really their final and their true home. They are looking for that land. And that really is what the most famous psalm in the Bible is all about as well. The Lord is my shepherd. Where does he lead me? He takes me home. I will dwell in the house of God, in that land forever. That's the first thing that we notice about this guy, that it's a kind of bucket list phenomenon that he is expressing here. He is going to a distant land. Second thing we notice is that he spends his money in wild living. That's to say, he wants to do things that give him a high. He wants to do things that will satisfy that longing in his heart and in his life for adventure. That's the reason, I think, why people sometimes have on their bucket list extreme sports. They want to do bungee jumping because there's that element of danger, that element of thrill. They want to go White River rafting because there's an element of danger in that, an element of adventure. We were made for adventure. And there is that instinct within us which gravitates to that. And that's why very often on the bucket lists there is that element of adventure, things that we want to do that will give to us a buzz like that. And for some people that's running a marathon. For other people it's bungee jumping. For different people it's different things, but it's all the same thing. What the young man here goes in for, this wild or extreme living. He is looking for something that satisfies that longing that he has for adventure. That's the second thing that we notice about him here in this story. It's a remarkable story that Jesus tells because he pinpoints what thousands of years on from when he was first telling this story is still evident in humanity today, this bucket list notion. There are places that I want to go, there are things that I want to do, and there are people that I want to meet. And there's that component as well. Initially, doubtless, in that land, that distant land, he encounters a whole load of different people. But eventually, when the money runs out, he's reduced to having to go to what is called simply a citizen of that country. And the outcome of it all is that he is simply left on his own. A nameless citizen from whom he seeks employment, who's given the most menial task of all, and who ends up feeding pigs and being in need. There's no one to help him, no one willing to help him. And so the third heading there is a distant country, that's the first one, wild living, and then a citizen. A reminder that we long for relationship. We were made for relationship. We long for romance. We long to know that we matter, to know that we belong, to know that we're loved, to enjoy the delights, the security, the pleasure of love. And he goes seeking all three of these things and finds that they don't satisfy. Why spend your money on what doesn't satisfy? And very often that's what lies behind our bucket lists as well. We are looking for relationship. We're looking to meet people that matter. Somehow to be able to say, I've met the Queen. That the Queen has shaken hands with me. I have touched stardom and celebrity. That longing for significance in relationship, that longing for relationship with others. That's just who we are and why we're made. And all of that is what God is pleased to give to us in the gospel. That's what Jesus came to afford to us. He came to give to us that prospect of a new land, that land that is altogether good, a realm where everything is absolutely right, satisfying, fulfilling, glorious, big, expansive, awesome in the right sense of the word. That's where he's taking a people. Come, I will take you to another land, a better land. We follow him to that better land. He says, I'll take you. And he brings us there. We were made not only for that realm where God dwells, we were made as well for adventure. And eternity is full of adventure. God is the most adventurous being of all. He delights to do things that are stunning and staggering in the sheer crazy adventure that is involved in them. He dares to do what lies beyond the realm of possibilities so far as we would think, but he's happy to do that. He is the most daring, adventurous being. And he made us in his own image with that longing for adventure. And Jesus satisfies that. Come follow me, he says. Be part of the adventure. Share in that adventure. And we were made ultimately for relationship with him, to enjoy his presence, to know his friendship, to rest in his love, to benefit from his instruction and his hand upon us, his forgiveness, his encouragement, his strength, his enabling, his guiding, his presence with us. The most wonderful, glorious individual in all eternity, and he bids us be a part of his life and share life with him. And so it is in him that ultimately our bucket lists find their true fulfillment. He's the one who satisfies. Come, all you who are thirsty, and I will give you that which satisfies the longing in your heart. Well, that's the bucket list, and I hope that it enables you to see what Jesus is moving towards here. We're going to round off our time in just a moment or two. I'm going to pray, and then after the prayer, we'll just lead straight on into a song sung by the Gettys called simply Living Waters, that gives expression to that. And as you listen into that and hear that song being sung, just enjoy again what is given to us in Jesus. Make him your own. If you've never done that, just take the opportunity to sing your way into his presence and his love and his grace. So let me join with you in prayer now. Let me pray. God our Father, thank you for this story that Jesus begins to tell here. Thank you for the way in which, with such stunning accuracy and precision, it pinpoints precisely where we're at, that longing in all our hearts that finds expression in this bucket list of places that we want to go, things that we want to do, people that we want to meet. That's the way that you've made us. And we readily see ourselves, therefore, in this story and in this younger man. And here, reverberating in our minds, that question that you ask, why spend money on what doesn't satisfy, when what does satisfy, what will satisfy, the place that we've been longing for, the adventure we've been eager to have, the romance that we long to experience, it's all there, given to us in your Son. Thank you for him. Thank you for his patience with us. Thank you for his grace towards us. Thank you for his kindness. Thank you for all that he is. Enable us to taste and to see that he is indeed altogether good. Help us to satisfy our thirst in relationship with him and live out the rest of this day and the rest of our days in his company and under his lordship and enjoying his life. And we ask it all for his name's sake. Amen.